Banana Fish. Pretty rad anime about child abuse and dark subjects. Yeah, not a very not a very lighthearted anime, but an anime nonetheless. And from the anime, we're gonna be learning a bit about suffering. Very fun subjects like suffering and how one would have to suffer to help others. And you might be wondering, what the fuck? Okay, well, how would we learn that, right? And that's where I would introduce you to some of the characters where we're mainly going to be looking at the two prominent characters in the show, Ash and Edgy, right? You know, these two we're going to be paying attention to most, but we're also going to be paying attention to definitely the side characters, because I do feel like the side characters do play a good bit into the show and like the sort of story progression and everything that acclimates Ash, rather, in a sense, right? And so, before we even get into that, let's start talking about the first character we see with Ash, Skip, right? So, Skip is this character, right? And you know, he's pretty innocent, he's pretty joyful and whatnot, and he's just glad to be with Ash because, well, Skip used to be, if I remember correctly, he used to be in this like pretty shitty situation in his life. Ash was like, nah, let me just protect you, B, and you know, just protects him throughout. Up until gang violence happens, gets shot, dies in like the first couple of episodes, and you know, Ash is like, fuck, what the fuck, man? No, I love you like a brother, man. You know, that fun stuff, a great thing. But then Edgy comes over into like the scene really more, and then he's like, oh, yeah, I exist, Lamau. And then Ash is like, oh shit, yeah, you do exist. Well, what the fuck are you doing here? This isn't like your kind of place. You shouldn't be here. Blah blah blah. But then Edgy's like, nah, I'm gonna be here. I think you're a good guy, and I want to be by your side, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, at the beginning, it's, like, a bit confusing, but, you know what, anime, like, shit happens in anime, I guess, you know? And so, with Skip, like, just pausing for a second, right, with Skip, you know, we start to see, like, we get this introduction to Ash and, like, his personality, how protective he is, and understand, like, it sort of foreshadows over to what we're going to be talking about later in this video. So, stick to it for that. But Edgy comes around, and it's like a completely different paradigm compared to Ash, whereas Ash is in like this sort of gang lifestyle and is sort of living as like the street rat or whatever, and you know, has to resort to violence for the most part to get through everything. Edgy is just a normal dude from Japan, you know, came from university and just wanted to just immigrate over to America you know, I kind of forgot why he went over to America, but he just did. I think for studies or some shit, I don't know. But either way, but yeah, like completely different lifestyles right there. And so with this, you know, we can get the symbolization of Edgy sort of being like this sort of innocence and like the normality, the peace, rather, right? Whereas Ash is representing like this chaos, this sort of suffering that, you know, this sort of like grungy lifestyle that he has to live through, and like all of his traumatic stuff that happened to him in the past, right? And you know, we move on with Ash to talk about like his dark past, where we get to look more in depth with that, right? You know, look into characters, especially like Papa Dino, where you know, he was the root cause of all the, and is still the cause throughout, you know, like all of his suffering and all of his like pain and agony, really, throughout all of this. And so with Ash, you know, his mentality, his like mission in his head is so that anybody, like any child or any like innocent person, whatever, does not get into any of these affairs. It doesn't get affected by any of these horrible things, especially with banana fish, the disease or the narcotic. Yeah. So, which, you know, it's always great when the government always has control of that. So, ooh, very fun stuff. but yeah, so yeah, we do see that like Ash goes through like the suffering and all this traumatic shit, right? All because of Papa Dino. Moving alongside that, we have other side characters that really, I think, represent Ash, like pieces of Ash into like just different personalities, really, and different characters. Like, for example, Li Yut Lung. You know, I think he's literally just Ash 2.0, just like Chinese Ash, basically, in the sense of like similar traumatic experiences through Papa Dino, of course, and there's like other struggles and losses that he had to go through as well throughout the anime through like familial loss and just like sort of the suffering and trauma that just happened just by being taken away really from his family. So it's like you get to see like more of what is it? What happens if Ash were to be more complacent and like sort of the negative side of him just like kind of giving up on his mission almost. You gotta, because we see Li Long just like going along with Papa and like going along with like all these other charades and just to help him try to stop Ash from spreading the banana fish narcotic and all that, and thus like ruining the entire planet and all that, right? So there's all that stuff going on, and then there's also characters like Arthur as well, who sort of represents the sort of like aggressive behavior that sort of like gang mentality, like the ultimate hostile masculinity that you see from Papa Dino and all these people, right? Like all the higher ups, and sort of as like a reminder for Ash to sort of keep his cool throughout the entire thing and to stay focused on his mission instead of just staying astray and sort of going all over the place with anger and being fueled with rage, despite like everything that's happening to him and then Edgy as well, and then everybody else that's associated with Ash, really. And again, there's like so many other side characters and so many other people associated with Ash that I could discuss in this video, but if I were, then we'd be here forever, so I'm not gonna do that. Instead, what I will talk about is more about the ending and just sort of like how that could relate to the whole suffering if you haven't got like the big picture yet. But if not, I'll explain it at the end. It's like, why do we have all this? Why did I talk about all this? Okay? So, the ending. For those that don't remember the ending, it's basically, Edgy is going back to Japan. And, since he already got shot in like, I believe chest or stomach, I don't know. He got shot, basically. He's up in his wheelchair, and then, would have said, got dispatched from the hospital, would have said bye to Ash, but Ash doesn't come. And Ash instead goes over to the library that he usually goes to for peace. And while he's going there, well, he gets a letter from Edgy, right? And just sort of gets stabbed. No, he does get stabbed. What do you mean I sort of get stabbed? He gets stabbed, goes over to the library, finishes the letter off, and just dies at the library peacefully. And so, and that's a key word there, peacefully, right? Because, what I wanted to discuss with that ending, like, although it is a very emotional ending, and there's a lot to unpack from it, the main thing really to take away from it is that Ash completed his mission. He did what he wanted to do, and he won. Like, that was his winning death, essentially. Because if we think about it in the beginning, right? If we go back to Skip, Ash wanted to protect Skip throughout the entirety of this, right? And he wanted to let Skip live a nice, happy lifestyle and all this great stuff, all the fun stuff, right? And so, but he couldn't do that. He failed in that mission, right? But to see that Edgy was able to be alive and go back to Japan in peace and all this sort of stuff, he felt complacent about it, and he felt succeeded in his mission. It was like, I feel I can rest in peace now. I can go ahead and die in peace. Very nice, And so, like the entire scenery, the fact that he's even going to the library, the piano music, even it creates this environment where it's it's an allusion to his death, but it's also the allusion to like him living on a peaceful afterlife and just sort of like being able to say, I did this, I prevented somebody from suffering like I did throughout my entire life, and I hope nobody else has to go through this same suffering again. And so he's just open arms about it. He doesn't go back to Edgy because he doesn't want to fuck that up completely. And from there, we're now getting into the part where we could finally draw in the conclusion, the lesson from the show, really, and just talk about more about like the suffering aspect and just really, how important that is if you want to achieve any sort of goal, like help others. Because the thing is, like, if I remember this correctly, I remember reading the Quran about this, and just some sort of holy scripture. I'm sure they would bring this up. It's like those who are leaders, those who lead on to help other people, they are slaves to something, or they are enslaved in their own way. They have to make self-sacrifice. They have to harm themselves, essentially, to be able to achieve that sort of guidance and help for other people. And with that comes like the whole self-sacrifice thing. And if you think about it, really, I guess for my case it would be doctors, right? So like what is it? Like doctors, for example, they have to sacrifice a lot of time and a lot of money. At least in America, they do, and they have to sacrifice a lot of things that they enjoyed and that they love to do, and like spending time with family, especially when it comes to going into medical school and the residency and all this stuff. Also, that they can go into the medical field and save other people's lives, right? So there's that aspect. There's that sacrifice. There's also, I guess, being a content creator, for example, right? Like, there's a sacrifice of time, there's a risk involved with it, and, you know, like, I'm just making these videos for fun, really, but, like, but I also want to make these videos to help other people, okay? And so, I have this sort of self-sacrifice where it's like, I could have spent this exact same time, you know, making this video, editing, doing all this stuff. I could have done that exact same thing, just, like, by video games, or watching other anime, instead of just talking about anime, right? But I made that sacrifice so that I can help others through anime, you know? And there's like other examples I could bring up, but I hope you're starting to see the trend throughout all of these different things, right? And that's the sort of main emphasis I want to bring with Banana Fish, because it's a heavy, look, it's a well done example about all the suffering that has been brought upon each of these characters, every character, even Papa himself, which I probably cut out in the video, but if I did it, cool. But yeah, like all the other characters in the show go through some form of suffering and some form of tribulation, and obviously from that they grow, but also they serve other people at the end as like a sort of redemption or a way of salvation for themselves, right? Like even with Papa, for example, at the end, at the closer end of this, right, when basically the military was betraying Papa and like everything goes south for him, basically. You know, he starts to help Ash and just sort of helps him throughout his journey. And so from there on, he sacrifices his life just so that Ash could go ahead and complete his mission to prevent Banana Fish from being spread and to help people like Edgy from, you know, not dying and not being in this sort of corrupt lifestyle, you know? So there's all that. But there's also other characters like, even like Leah Lung, and then Sing, like all these other different people, and like the Chinese gang especially, like a lot of Chinese people. They all have their own way through suffering, and they all help either each other or they help others they either help directly or indirectly. That's what I'm trying to say here, without trying to skip around a lot. And Ash especially is a great example of this, because we see his journey throughout the entirety of the anime. And at the end especially, it sort of is like this closing remark that he's done everything he did. He was able to save Edgy from this corrupt and fucked up lifestyle. He was able to recover from the abuse. I mean, the abuse is still there, of course, but he was able to sort of like challenge that and sort of like be above that in a sense and live on life to protect others and to make sure they don't live that sort of lifestyle. And especially through being corrupt through Banana Fish and all these other harmful things. So, with all that in mind, what can you do about this? Well, just set some goals. It doesn't have to be big, and it doesn't have to be completely small either. Just go ahead and set some goals and just fucking go for it, man, and make things that are suited towards you. And if you don't know how to really do that, I totally get you, because I was in that same boat like a long time ago, right? And so with that, I would just say, like, just take some time off your computer, off your phone, whatever, right? Be isolated in your room and just sort of let your mind flow and figure out, okay, why are you doing the things you're doing? What do you want to help in the world? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to be solved? Like, what issue in the world exists but nobody gives a shit about? Because for me, that's autism. That's one thing. Another thing is looking at the self-help community and seeing how, like, a lot of people like to shit on anime and video games, all that sort of stuff. And I want to bring a light on that and just say, like, you know, animes like Banana Fish, or like even some ridiculous anime, which I plan to make on in the later upcoming videos. Jeez, if I can talk. You know, all of them have these like life messages and all these sort of like great things we can learn from anime. And I'm just here to sort of translate and help those out. And, you know, I mean, hey, it's pretty fun for me. I hope at least if one person well, that's 2. If one person has learned anything from this video or from my previous videos, I feel good about that. And I feel pretty happy, and I'm just glad that they learned something from those videos, and that's a good thing for me, you know? And I go way over time here. I've been rambling a whole lot, but with that being said, that's pretty much the end of the video. If you sticked all the way to the end point, again, I really do appreciate it very heavily. If you can drop a subscribe and ring the bell and leave a like in this video. Cringe ass knitting baby shit. But yeah, if you can do all that and support me, pretty cool. If you can also leave a comment, just tell me like if I'm even like doing a good job or like if I'm just rambling too much. Also very helpful. I would greatly appreciate that. And with all that being said, yeah, thank you guys for watching. And yeah, hopefully you learned something from Banana Fish as much as I did, because holy hell, this is a hella good anime. I'm not gonna lie with you. And even if I didn't include the Papa part, I'm gonna still link the article because I do feel like that's interesting in a sense. Probably leave some context or something, but still interesting nonetheless. So yeah, all right. See ya. Bye bye. Pretty people.